Hello and welcome to Keel Week.
So, so, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and thanks for joining us at Kieler, Woche, otherwise known as Keel Week. My name is Andy Rice, and working with me on today's broadcast is Ben Ramoka, 49er class manager, which is just as well because no one knows more about this fleet than Ben. So, Ben, thanks for getting on the broadcast with us today.
Oh, wonderful to be here. I'm looking forward to seeing some sailing again for it's been way too long.
Now,
The
you go ahead, Ben.
just wanted to say we're back in Keel Week. Obviously, it's the venerable regatta that happens once a year up in northern Germany, the site of the 1968 Olympics, no, 1972 Olympics, and always a windy place. And we should be in for some great racing today with 49er Blue.
Yeah, let's just explain how this broadcast is working, Ben. This time last year, you and I were in sunny Kiel in June, and it was 30 degrees, and it was the most spectacular Kiel that you could possibly hope to be at. But in the COVID world that we're in now, we're doing a very different type of broadcast. So I'm in Winchester in the south of England. Ben, where are you?
I am in Vancouver, Canada, in the middle of the night. It's 4 a.m. here, but through the magic of technology, it feels like you're right next door.
It is amazing, isn't it? I've got a lot more books than you do, but you do have a globe, so you've got a better sense of the world. But I'm still filling my head with books and knowledge. But I want to ask you all about what you know about the 49er class today. And what strikes me about the entry that we have for Kieler Woche in the 49er is that we have so many of the best teams in the world. We maybe don't have the best, the reigning world champions, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, who are busy training for the America's Cup on the other side of the world in New Zealand. But tell us about some of the big runners and riders that we'll see today in the Blue Fleet, and also who are competing in the other fleet, the Yellow Fleet.
Well, Andy, you're right to say that we do have some of the very elite teams in the world, but like you said, not everyone is here. We have essentially, maybe half of the countries were able to travel and half aren't. So our friends down under are still down under. Most of our friends from the Americas are still in the Americas, but almost all the European teams are here, including the 2018 world champions, the Fantilla brothers from Croatia, the Austrian sailors, Bildstein and Husel, who won the warm-up regatta in Aarhus last week. And we're just about to start the first race of the day.
Right, so let's go to that action that is about to get going on the water. We've got just over 30 seconds to the start. And just as I say that, we go to postponement. So that's unfortunate. So maybe there's a shift in the wind. We don't know the reasons for the postponement. It looks like there's enough breeze. Ben, you were saying that Kiel, you can generally rely on the wind. Of course, what we don't know so much about Kiel is at this time of year, because this is happening almost 3 months later in the season than Kieler Woche would normally be taking place. But the strength of the breeze looks good. The forecast says we should be in for about 10 or 12 knots of breeze from the west. But let's hope that postponement is going to be pretty short, because the conditions look great, don't they?
They do look great. It's Kiel should be nice and windy this time of year. It certainly was in the warm-up days, the last few days, and looks to be today. Mm-hmm. You could just see there most of the boats were piled up at the pin end of the line. So my guess is a wind shift here has held us up for the day. And looks to me like the race committee will reset the line, and you can see the old ship they use as the race committee boat. That's famous for. I think this area might be called hotel area, if I recall. But they've got a long history in Kiel of these teams running races for the sailors for dozens of years. And I certainly recognize that committee boat, even from my days.
Right. And we just had the first boat we saw come into picture, Denmark 7. That was Jonas Vara and Jakob Precht Jensen. Jonas Vara, now you would know all about Jonas, Ben, because you competed in the Olympic Games in 2008 for Canada, and it was Jonas that went on to win the gold medal in those controversial Olympic Games, that medal race. So it's amazing to see that Jonas Vara, 12 years later, is still competing at the top level.
Yeah, Jonas has actually punched his ticket to Tokyo. So Jonas and his new crew, Jakob, are going to be racing in Tokyo next summer, and they're still training strong. And when asked about retirement, Jonas is now in his early 40s. He wouldn't commit to it. He may well keep trying for Paris as well. So the dream lives strong with Jonas. He's now clearly the most senior sailor in the fleet, the most experienced sailor in the fleet, and still right at the top of the game. I think he's on sail number 7, meaning he came 7th at the last Worlds in February this year. So he's still sailing at a very high level, and would be a bit of would be in the running for a medal, both here this week and in Tokyo.
Well, as long as we see Santiago Lange competing at the top level in the NACRA, having won the gold medal in the NACRA in Rio 2016 at the age of, I think, 53 or 54, he's back in again. We'll see him tomorrow in the NACRA racing here at Kieler Woche. So it just goes to show that age is not necessarily an impediment to doing well. Now, I don't know who we're on board with here. We'll try and identify that. But anyway, you can see that there's plenty of breeze there for the boat that we're on board with. And now, talking of age, Marcus Bauer, who went to the Olympic Games twice for Germany, has now, at the age of 49, got back into the 49ers. So we'll see Marcus Bauer competing with his crew, Philippe Barth, who competed in Sydney 2000. So they raced together exactly 20 years ago in September of the year 2000, and I think they came either 4th or 5th in those Olympic Games. And now, at the ages of 49 and 43, Marcus and Philip are having a go to see if they can show how the young guns, how it's done.
Yeah, Marcus is a good friend, and we were chatting with COVID starting and being restricted to home. He was able to go sailing, and that was one of the things he decided to do with the freedom they did have. So he and Philip got in the boat again and started training with the local German squad, and decided to do a regatta even. So I'll nice flat water for him here. I think they'll get around the course all right. It'll be fun to hear his comments after about getting back into a race course for the first time in probably 10 years. I think he retired in 2008 from top level racing. So it's been quite a gap, but the boats, have gotten a lot better, but are mostly the same than different. So we'll see how much he remembers. He was certainly a European champion back in his top racing days. So, has all the pedigree for these boats, and we'll see how it goes to jump back in. There's been a little of that going around. I think Chris Draper and the likes of Simon Hiscox and whatnot also did some sailing in the UK, although they aren't here this week. So COVID has brought back a few teams to the fleet as we see all the teams lining up again, looking like we're in sequence, Andy.
Right. Well, let's hope we are getting back into sequence very soon. And we'll see if it's young or old that have the legs in this first qualification race here at Kieler Woche 2020. We've got 4 minutes to the start.
We haven't seen on board. Oh, this might be them. I wonder if that is. That's Eric Kyle.
That is Marcus.
I just saw his face.
No, that's Marcus. That's Marcus Bauer.
Okay, so we've also got in this fleet Eric Kyle and Thomas Plosel, who came second at the last Worlds. Weren't that close at the end, but we're right in the running to win that World Championship down in Australia the last time we raced. And we can see Germany, too, right in front of the committee boat there, just sniffing out the wind as they decide how to attack their start. We've got the Italians 88 in the middle of the line. That's let's just double check their number. That's Visconti.
Crivelli Visconti. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're one of the top teams in this fleet. We've also got Buksak Wizbiki from Poland, Poland 19. Should be around. Oh, yeah, there's Marcus. Okay. Very good. And
Now, what's happened to Philip's hair? I'm sure Philip Barth used to have hair. Now,
well,
Marcus
he's
Bauer has sent.
aerodynamic now.
Yes, so yeah, maybe even faster now. So when they last sailed the 49er together, that was 20 years ago. It was a smaller rig, and it wasn't the carbon mast or the square top mainsail that we see now. But from what I hear, I've only sailed the new rig once, Ben, but it's actually easier than the old rig because it's lighter and therefore has less inertia as you sail the boat round through manoeuvres and things like that, and it's less prone to nosediving. So if anything, the boat has got easier to sail in the last 20 years, not harder.
Yeah, it's got a little more sail area, slightly taller mast and squarer top, but it's more tunable, so you can set it for the wind conditions more easily, depower it more, and also, as you say, it's lighter, so easier to maneuver. So yeah, I think it's still no easy feat to sail, but Marcus will have enjoyed those settings, no doubt. So we see Eric Heil come in here and try and win the pin. Eric Heil and Thomas Plosel, Germany 2, closest to the pin as we get into the end of our start sequence. You can see all the boats lining up. In the background there, that was that's Bauer heading back the other way.
So we got about just under 1 minute 30 to the start, and you can see that some of these teams are well lined up already, and the 49er class has got so good at booking its spot really early. We saw in Miami in light winds that some of the boats were even lining up on the line 8 minutes before the start gun because they want to book their spot early. So the ability for these teams to hold their position on the line is incredible. But as I say that, what do we see?
Yeah. So Eric Heil and Thomas Plosel have decided they didn't have enough room to hold that spot at the pin, and they've bailed out. They'll do another start, and that is a pretty aggressive pin place or start there. Malloris McDermott from the USA, they're also about to bail out, leaving the young Norwegians, I think. Let's see, that's a new team to us.
Well, so I wonder if the Germans, Germany 2, are going to go for the port tack start.
They might be, but I'm just looking at this pin boat, Madsen Nielsen. So I think that's the team that has just recently graduated from 29er to 49er. I think the skipper is quite a famous 29er sailor, winning multiple world championships and youth worlds.
10 seconds. Let's see if he can do it. Let's go. So we've got most of the fleet now coming off on starboard. We've got Germany 13 starting on port. That's Tim Fisher and Fabian Graf going out behind the fleet. And it's a good start for Denmark 7, just going out of picture. But it's terrible for Norway 888. It's the 888 is not a lucky number for them because they got hooked up on the anchor chain of the pin end boat, and a disastrous start for Norway, but a fantastic start for Jonas Warre, the Olympic champion of 2008, and also a good start
for Ryan Seaton and Shefra Guilfoyle from Ireland on their hip. But yeah, great spot here for Jonas Warre. Let's see if he likes the left side. We've got Bart Lambro from Netherlands heading out, did well on the port tack start going out to the right. So he's one of the top sailors now. Also has an Olympic berth that he needs to qualify for. Those two made it within the qualifying limit both in 2019 and 2020, but still have some qualification to get done for the Netherlands standards.
What I want to know is why Eric Heil and Tommy Plussel haven't started this race as well. So if we can get some info in the background on what happened to Eric Heil and Tommy Plussel, why they didn't start the race. We saw them bail out of their pin end start, and it looks at the moment, unless there is a problem with their tracking, it looks like Eric Heil and Tommy Plussel haven't actually started. Look at how the Danish have converted that pin end start into a nice lead, comfortably crossing the Irish on their first tack, and now the Danes going out into the middle of the course, and I would say are looking very strong right now. Ireland now following into that tack, also a very good start for the Irish, and a great tack by the Irish. So those two boats looking good on the left-hand side of the track right now, whilst on the far side, it looks like it's Lambria and Van Voot from the Netherlands who have the best of the right-hand side of the track.
Yeah, Jonas and Jakob are going to be really happy with that start. I mean, they to be able to win the pin and then tack and cross. I mean, that's how you draw it up in textbooks. So wonderful sailing from them. They had a great acceleration. Leapt right out in front in terms of the boats around them. Obviously got a bit of a shift or a puff and wanted to tack back across the fleet and were able to do so. Actually, it wasn't particularly close. They just had so much room, and this should be a perfect position for them to head in and certainly be contending. Maybe the Dutch will get something on the far right, but otherwise you'd have to say they're in command of this race.
Absolutely, and you look at it from that perspective, and it looks like the Danes have the Dutch quite easily on the right-hand side, but these camera angles can be deceptive, so we won't really know that until further up the track. But in terms of the boats around them, it's extremely comfortable right now for Jonas Wara.
You can see from the color of the water that it is quite patchy. You can see there's clouds obviously in the sky. So we're going to see some localized wind effects, which will affect the boats differently on different sides of the courses. But Jonas, certainly they're stretching hard here and obviously have plenty of wind where they are. So they seem like they're in a great spot to convert this start into a lead at the windward mark.
And the French not too far behind them as well. We see Ruel Amoros also doing quite well, a little bit tucked away to leeward of the Danes, but still pretty good start for the French. And there we see Bauer. So Marcus Bauer, Germany 5, doesn't look as powered up as the leaders. They're a little bit bent-legged. So they don't seem to be developing power out of the rig as successfully as some of the full-time professional teams, or maybe they're just in different breeze there.
Yeah, it might be that they're in compromised wind, although, yeah, probably they just haven't got their settings quite right to take full advantage of the rig. But, it's great for them to see them on the race course. I've just heard that Heil and Plosel got an OCS, so they started too early, and therefore won't be competing in this race. It's a bit surprising. I'm pretty sure the U flag was up, meaning that they it seemed to me like they got around the line before 1 minute, but maybe I was wrong, and maybe therefore they're scored a black flag or a UFD on that. So unlucky start for them as the local heroes looking to win this regatta.
That's really surprising. I mean, it didn't look like anyone was forcing them over. So that's really surprising to hear that. I would say that was an unforced error by Highland Plus, or not what we expect to see from a team of their caliber. So Wara and Prek Jensen just about to do their final tack of this first leg of the first race in the 49ers at Kieler Woche 2020. And it's a great start for the Danes, for Wara, the Olympic 2008 champion, with a quite comfortable lead. We'll have to see who's in contention for second, but amongst those will be the French, Ruel and Amoros. And we're looking at Prek Jensen just releasing the Vang, releasing the Cunningham, just releasing those controls, and the crew will run into the boat, get that Jenica up as Wara is keeping the boat balanced. And look at that lead. It's a really comfortable lead by the standards of a 49er race. Must be almost a tent boat length lead as the French come in for second place around this mark, followed by an almost identifiable boat. Ben, what is going on with those bare sails? That's not allowed in this fleet, surely.
No, it is. Well, technically, this is not a World Cup, so it is allowed. I wonder, was that the Croatians? I couldn't even make it out on the way by, but
I
could have
couldn't
been
either. It's what.
Yeah, we'll figure it out before too long. It is. Someone's telling me in my ear it is Croatia.
I
so
think
maybe
it's the Polish. No, it's
okay.
Poland. Poland 164. Staniul and Storch. Anyway, the fleet are going round now. Lambria and Van Voot, they were winning the right, and they go round in about 5th place. So the right wasn't quite as good as the left on this course. And now we're in the congested area. But look at that lead for Vara and Jensen from Denmark with a very comfortable margin of 54 meters on the French who are chasing them. But it does look like the French have a lower line, so the French will have carried round the breeze, a better gust, and that leaves
Yeah,
Jensen.
how
The
unlucky
leaders are
for
starting to.
how unlucky for the leaders to go around and have the guys way behind them get a different wind shift and maybe a bit of a puff to soak down on their line. Now, 40, 50 meters is still a bit of a lead, but yeah, they'll be nervous about that low line for everyone behind and knowing they have to jibe and cross clear ahead. Ruel and Amaros, they're the French representatives to Tokyo 2021. So they're no slouches, and we're in the top 10 at the 2018 Worlds. So they've got some hot competition. We see Jonas has gone for his jibe and clear across. So no problem there. And they've managed to get through the initial danger on this run as the teams in their set and different breeze. And you can see now following behind.
And stretching out that lead to almost 70 metres now. And the French still the closest rivals to taking the lead from the Danes. But the Danes on the approach to the leeward gate first time round and looking relatively comfortable. And it looks like the breeze is also quite steady. So hopefully not too many surprises for the race leaders. A fairly controllable race for a team of this calibre, you would say.
Yeah, they'll have to choose which gate to go around here as they have to make the first choice, and obviously there's a chance for a split. Usually those splits end up being fairly big since the teams want to clear their air. But other than that, in full control of this race right from the moment the start gun went. You can see them just soaking here. I wonder if they're going to go straight late. Oh no, they go for their jibe. Oh yeah, douse straight. And then off to the far right side. So very clean sailing from these two. Only one maneuver on the way down. And we see the split there from the French, who are a lot closer, it has to be said, at the bottom than they were at the top.
Yes, and going up the left-hand side of the track, which was the favoured side on the first beat. That's not to say it's necessarily going to be the favoured side next time round, but left worked very nicely on the first rounding. That's the unidentifiable Poland boat, followed by Netherlands 49. And then coming round the Irish, bit of a slow drop there. They lost a bit of momentum and pace. And out behind them go the Belgians, Belgium 24 going out to the right-hand side. Now, it's interesting that Vara has now tacked back towards the left-hand side. So whilst Waro went round that mark, he's decided that he wants to cover his options on this side of the course and make sure that the French don't get too far out. But the French already look dangerous on the Danes. The Danes are sailing back through the congested middle part of the course, maybe suffering a bit of bad air from the boats coming downwind with their Jenicas, because the French, I would say, are starting to challenge for the lead. And they've got nice breeze there. You can see the crew are fully stretched.
Yeah, very good setup here for the French. They've just crouched in there. So I just got hit a light spot as we give them the commentator's curse as they power up and try and get through a bit of chop. But our leaders. Here's Marcus Bauer. I think he's still in his downwind, if I identify the sailing position correctly here. So this is our veterans making it downwind safely here and going for their last maneuvers. But back with the leaders, we've got Ruel and Amaros. They're dealing with the motorboat chop, unfortunately. So this is our camera boat, just a bit too far ahead of the fleet. So impacting our leaders, but they're going to have to probably just bail out of that. They can't go behind the camera boat. So unfortunate there that leaders interfered with, but let's see if they can still get across. And look, you can see on the far side there, our tracking has Fisher and Graf doing well on the far side. So Jonas War having to defend both sides of the course here and has given up some of his commanding lead, but still, it has to be said, does have enough, you'd think, to make it to the top mark with the lead. Ooh, really unfortunate there for Ruel and Amaros as they look to be threatening and now have had to tack in a light spot and actually look like they might be falling backwards in the fleet.
Absolutely, yes. I thought they were really starting to come on strong there, but they seem to fall into a bit of a wind hole, just as I was saying about two or 3 minutes ago how they were fully stretched, and as you said, Ben, I put the commentator's curse on them, and they seem to lose the pressure on the racecourse. And if anything, it might be Fischer and Graf on the right-hand side, one of the German teams that are one of the bigger threats to the Danes. But at the moment, the Danes still look pretty well stretched as they go into attack, and a nice clean tack for Denmark, still in control of this race as much as they can, because the fleet is quite well spread out across the full breadth of the racecourse.
Yeah, they Warrior and Precht Jensen, they've got, they're powered up. You can see them fully trapped right there. So unlike the French team that we saw, how they had to tack back in a light spot, those two are able to come back with breeze. But it has to be said, there's a number of boats on the far side who, if the wind, look at that, Warrior's come back. So Warrior's had to tack, hasn't liked his angle or pressure on the way back across the course, and now is having to go farther left. So we will have a bit of intrigue here as to what's going to happen on the last few hundred meters up to this windward mark.
Yes, that is a sign that they're not particularly enjoying the angle back to the windward mark, and they're having to look for something further over on the left-hand side. So that's a sign of vulnerability for Vora and Jensen. I wonder if that offers some hope for the boats on the far right-hand side, the Belgians, the Germans, the Dutch, and the Polish, who are all in little cluster going out to the right-hand side. And are we looking at Fischer and Graf there? I think that's Fischer and Graf, one of the German teams. Yeah. So this is one of the teams.
They're on the far right.
And so they've tacked on to starboard. So Fischer and Graf looking strong on the right-hand side. I wonder if Vora and Jensen have enough to be able to get across the boats that have attacked from the far side of the course. But it's starting to look bad for the Danes, who are looking exposed at the bottom of our picture on the right-hand side as far as the... Oh, they've tacked again. So the Danes are really struggling for air on that left-hand side.
Yeah, it was not a promising moment when they had to tack back the first time, because they were hardly back across the fleet at all, and now they've gone for another one. So must be some left shifts coming in here. We see Fischer and Graf, who are the farthest left boat, are taking advantage of that. And they're certainly crossing. Fischer and Graf are, that is, the boats on the far side. We see Jonas Warr and Jakob Precht Jensen haven't given up on this beat yet. They're not willing to go behind all these boats and take their sterns. They're going to try and make their best way on the left side of the course. They're sailing in different breeze than the boats on the right, and they've just done this is now their third set of tacks for the beat. Each time pushing them to the farther left side of the course in hopes that the wind will be better for their angle back across. And, they do look like they're in strong pressure here. Hard to tell from this spot about their angle, but they've gone from a 50 meter lead to second place here pretty quickly.
Yes, I mean, in the big scheme of things, it's still a good score to take forwards in your series, but unfortunate for them if they're not able to hold on to this lead. This is really tightening up, and it's a battle between Germany in the middle, it's the Danes on the left, and it's the Poles and the Dutch on the right-hand side, and it could be the Poles or the Dutch that could come out well out of this.
Well, it looks like the Danes are going to actually make that work and get across this team here of it's Fischer and Graf. Now there is a further threat farther on the right now with the Polish and the Dutch teams. So we've got three groups here, each fighting it in. But it does look like Jonas Warr has picked the right shifts on the left side of the course and defended the initial challenge from the Germans. But will he make it all the way through to the windward marks on this shift? It does look like pretty strong right here. He's even footing off a little bit overstood. So he's on a good shift right now. The wind must have come back a little bit left for him, and that's enabled him to get back across and cover these boats.
And the boat's absolutely flying. They're fully stretched, the Danes. They have really good pace, but they have overstood, and you can see on the different angles, Fischer and Graf will be closing the gap because Vora and Jensen have sailed extra distance, but they are going faster with it as well. And in the end, it's more comfortable than we thought, Ben, for the Danes, as they still round in the lead and relatively comfortably ahead of the Germans.
Yeah, big left shift at the top there. The boats that were on the right side have had to do extra maneuvers. We actually saw the yellow band around that windward mark, so that's a new windward mark. They've adjusted the course because the shifts were so big on this beat, and Fisher and Graf move up into second place. We haven't seen the French. Remember, the French were challenging for the lead initially. They're back all the way down in sixth place. They're going to follow the Belgian team just after our Polish, so we can see jibe sets. Obviously, the teams that came from the right both jibe set, so they obviously think that there's better pressure on the far side of the course, the course they're jibe setting to. Meanwhile, Jonas Warrer happy with the side he took up the beat and continues on the straight set. So we'll see if he jibes to cover or just thinks he's got it right. And then another split. We see the Dutch, Lambro and Van Voigt straight set. So I'm not 100% convinced on that far side, like the second and third place boats are. So we'll have a bit of intrigue here for second place. You would like to think that Jonas has got this figured out enough to take the lead all the way through, but we can obviously see it shifty and puffy. So some action yet to come. Beautiful shot there. So they're flying downwind, looking in great shape at the moment.
Yes, they are. And the thing that must have gone through their mind is they've just arrived at the windward mark on a port hand lift. So when they tack on to starboard and hoist the kite on starboard, which they are now, that should be the header. That should be the one that takes them down closest towards the finish. And it is a pretty comfortable lead right now, 130 meters. But Fisher and Graf and the Poles, Steniul and Storch, they do at least have leverage. So if there's any shift in conditions, they've got quite a bit of leverage on the far side of the track. We're looking at the Irish coming down with the purple.
Look how high they're trapping. So it's, they were trapping pretty high there. So they're not stretched by any sense in terms of the wind speed. I'd say this is sort of, just comfortable double trapping conditions and getting stretched, but it's not that windy, and these guys are looking to get as much pressure as they can to really accelerate. So a little harder trapping there from the Dutch, so they might be in a little bit more pressure. The Irish looked, maybe they're trying to soak down on the line with the threat from that Danish nine behind them.
So Fisher and Graf on the right of our screen, and let's see how they're getting on. We can get an angle from there overhead, and it actually looks like Fisher and Graf are doing quite well on the right hand side, but not close enough to be a threat to the Danes. That's the Danes we see now, probably thinking about a jibe fairly soon, getting that black Jenica through the jibe. Let's see how clean it is. Very clean indeed. And this should be the Danes quite comfortably going down towards the bottom of the course and scoring away a race win in Kiel Week if everything stays together for them right now.
Yeah, nice jibe there. They look to be on the ley line to the finish. And Jonas Warrer starting this regatta just the way he'd want to, winning the pin, tacking on the first shift, crossing the fleet, and then extending the race. A bit of challenge there in the second beat, as he had some extra work to do with 3 sets of tacks to find the right shifts to hold his lane to the windward mark, but very comfortable here in the last leg, as we see the challengers here from Germany, Fischer Graf, have done very well here to hold on to second, but are not anywhere ready to challenge for the win.
So Fischer and Graf, still a good score for them if they can hold on to second place. But the Danes, if anything, have stretched their lead down this final run. So the Danes weren't suckered into wanting to protect against second and third, who did that early jibe set at the windward mark. They decided to stick to their guns. And pretty much the Danes have gone up and down the same side of the racetrack all race. They've gone up the left and they've come back down the same side of the course pretty much all the way, and that's worked very well for them. A very simple, straightforward approach, and they've kept it simple. It all comes back to winning the pin end of the start. They absolutely won the start, and as we know so often, getting a start of that caliber and doing so well in the early stages of a race can set you up very nicely for the rest of the race. That's exactly what happens as Jonas Warrer and Jakob Precht Jensen cross the finish line and win race 1 of Kieler Woche 2020 in the 49er fleet.
Yeah, the Danes hosted a training week last week in Aarhus, and there was a little regatta there as well. So obviously that Danish training serving them well. Likewise, the locals here from Germany having a nice race in second place, and they'll be happy with starting the series that way. Again, this is qualifying racing, so there's two fleets of 49ers out there right now. This is the blue fleet. The yellow fleet is farther out to sea on a different course. We see the young Polish team there of Stanuel and Storch in third, followed by the would-be Olympians, Lambry and Van Voigt from Holland in fourth place there. They have an internal standard to meet. I'm not sure exactly how the Dutch internal standards will go with the interruption. There haven't been any championships for them to qualify at, but maybe Kiel Week would count if they can get a top finish here and punch their ticket to Tokyo. Belgium there, Lefebvre and Pelsmaker through in fifth. That's a team that hasn't qualified yet for Tokyo, so they're eyeing the European qualifier to get that last spot available when it comes in the spring. That's not yet announced what that regatta will be. You see Roule and Amaros from France being challenged by Seaton and Guilfoyle. So Roule and Amaros were challenging for the lead just one lap ago, and fell all the way down there to seventh place. They'll be a bit disappointed with how the back of that race panned out. We saw them, challenging and then fell into that light spot, and we see the difference. How well Jonas and Precht Jensen navigated those light spots on the left and those bad shifts, and certainly did better than Roule and Amaros in that front.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly things can turn bad to be challenging for the lead. And then at the finish, I mean, they must have come across the line, the French, maybe a minute 30 behind the leaders, certainly at least a minute behind the winners of the race. So a big loss to the French on the final part of this race. Other Danish boat just crossing.
Yeah, and then these are the Americans coming through. This is actually not the team that's likely to go to the games should America get a spot. America's the first team out of the running right now, so they will only get a spot at the games if someone backs out and isn't able to go, for example, like the Dutch, if they don't hit an internal qualification, or one of the other teams. But they are kept to continue to train through to Paris, and they've got a two-boat program continuing on despite the challenges of not qualifying yet for Tokyo.
Right. So two German teams, Reuler Heinrich just getting across the line ahead of Berg and Baumann. Hannes Baumann used to sail the 49er, then went to the NACRA for a while. Am I correct, Ben?
Yeah, I raced against Hannes for quite a while, actually. That's a good name to catch. He was a good guy. He did probably, I'd say, a quad in the 49er, I think, with Marcus Bauer in the 2008 quad. So good to see him back on the water again.
Now, Germany 59, am I right in thinking normally we'd say Schmidt and Böhmer are European champions from a few years back sailing Germany 59?
Yeah, that's got to be one of their sails. So I haven't seen Schmidt and Böhmer in this fleet. We could probably log in online and see if they're still going. With Heil and Plössl qualified for the Olympics, I wonder if they've moved on with other aspects of their life, having been the second place boat now for two quads in a row, as we see Bauer sneak through the line and catch a couple boats at the finish. Good for them.
Excellent. So Marcus Bauer and Philippe Barth competed in the Olympics 20 years ago, Sydney 2000. They finished in 21st place in this fleet, and that's in a fleet of about 26, 27 boats. So any position other than last, I'm going to say, is a good result for Bauer and Barth, because they really haven't sailed the 49er much certainly in Marcus Bauer's case for about 12 years, and Philippe Barth probably for the best part of 20 years. So to come back in and beat a few of the full-timers, that's not too bad. And the boat that didn't get a finish at all, Heil and Plössl, second in this year's World Championship, bronze medal in Rio 2016 Olympics. That unforced error, they picked up a U-flag disqualification, and that was an unfortunate non-start to their regatta. They've won Kieler Woche a few times in the past. There's plenty of opportunity for them to redeem themselves over the next 4 days of competition. We have the medal race on Sunday, and we'll be commentating on that as well, Ben. But it's not a great start for Highland Plus, or who you would probably say are the favourites out of the teams that we see here in this competition. It just goes to show even the best can get it quite badly wrong.
Yeah, they'll be unhappy with starting with an OCS. I mean, after all this waiting 6 months till 6 months since we last raced, and now they don't get to start properly in the first race, so that they'll be disappointed. It's not an easy way to get going, but them's the breaks. I guess they are. I suppose the class of this field right now, but tough way to go. And Jonas Warrer clearly ready for the opportunity. He wasn't the closest boat to the pin. That was, if you remember, the Norwegian boat, Nielsen Matheson, who just
That's true.
got hung up, and they just got the acceleration exactly perfectly, launched at the line full speed, and managed to extend on the fleet from the first moment. So very, very impressive sailing from them. And we saw the Irish on their hip, who appeared initially to have almost as good a start, but just didn't have the speed to be able to hold on the hip of the Danish, and they managed to sail through a nice race in the top 10. But shows the power of being the first boat at the pin to get off the line.
Well, we've got 10 minutes until the start of the next race. Let's take a break for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we will come back in for the starting sequence of race 2 of Kieler Woche. So we're going to be back to you very, very shortly, and we will pick up the action and see if Highland Plussel can redeem themselves after that poor start to their Kieler Woche 2020. Back to you soon. Okay, so we've got about 30 seconds to the start, and it's looking for race 2 of qualification in the Blue Fleet in the 49er class. It's looking very, very busy up at the committee boat end. No one is interested in the pin end of the line, which was what worked in the first race just now for Jonas Wöhrer and Jakob Jensen. It's all about the committee boat end of the start. We've got just a couple of seconds. They're launching now, and the fleet are away, but will it be a clean start? We got a couple of boats starting on port tack underneath the fleet going out to that far side. It's looking like a nice clean start for Germany 59 Bergen Baumann, who took the easy option of starting to lure to the fleet, but maybe a very sensible option as well. Not just an easy start, but look how they're already converting that left-hand end of the start to a really nice position. So sensible sailing there by the Germans, who already have good positioning on the rest of the fleet.
So, Andy, that Nyborg is the Danish boat that's punched out in the front. So they won the boat end, and they're doing really nicely off the start from the boat end of the line. And then, of course, we've got lots of boats heading out to the far right of the course. We've got a lot more wind as well this race. We saw them, light or just lightly double trapping in the last race, and now we see them fully double trapping and going going rapidly here on the start.
Going really nicely, and if they wanted to, it looks like they could even tack. Now let's look at the start again. Great start by Germany 59, closest to picture, and very, very congested up at the committee boat. And so not that many boats get away cleanly from the right-hand end. And it just, to me, Ben, if you're looking for good average finishing positions, being that extreme boat, as Bergen Baumann were, doesn't look like such a bad option to me, because you've got the ability to put the bow down and get the boat accelerated. And there's not many boats that are going to be able to achieve the same outcome coming off the committee boat end of the line. So it looks to me like a pretty smart tactic and quite easy to execute as well.
Yeah, certainly from an easy point of view, it is. Often teams that try that have a tough time judging the line, because they're typically on a funny angle compared to normally how they practice. But clearly they did well and have enough speed, so they're right in the front row and definitely going fast enough to challenge for this race. We're just going to see them go for an attack here.
Yes, and there's no one for them to cross, actually. They're out there by themselves, and now they've got to see if now that they've tacked, can they convert that early advantage off the start line into getting back cleanly across the top of the fleet. Bergen Baumann finished in the middle of the pack first time round. So will they be able to go on and get a top three, maybe even win this race this time round, because they are not the most fancied of the German teams here. Fischer and Graf, they were second in the previous race. We're on board with Fischer and Graf right now, still on starboard tack, and you can see how stretched they are, that it is full power conditions for Fischer and Graf and the rest of the 49er fleet. This is the blue half, and they just let a port tacker go across the front of them there, but they're choosing to carry on starboard. Crossed there by the Danish boat of Salskov, Iversen and Nielsen, going out to the left-hand side with Heil Plussel. But at the moment, the best of the German teams is Bergen Baumann, the winners of the start, certainly the left-hand end of the start. And look at that view that Germany 59 has, comfortably crossing all the boats on starboard tack. But
well, as you say that, Andy, sorry to interrupt, but they tacked back again in a light spot. We saw that in the last race. It can be tough to get back to the right. And those two tacked and were high trapping, no pressure. Obviously, they didn't think they were going to cross these boats and were forced back left. And now we see the boats on the far right side of the course, Lefebvre and Pelsmaker, along with our previous race winner, Warren Jensen, on the far side of the course, showing the virtual lead.
So Warren Jensen winning the previous race from the left-hand side of the track, going for something completely different and going to the right-hand side of the first leg of this race, and so far showing that going the opposite way in the second race is proving to be the right tactic for the Danes. So the 2008 Olympic champion Jonas Wöhrer making sense of these difficult variable conditions. And now Germany 59 just looks like just another boat in the fleet. They were looking like clear leaders just 2 minutes ago, and now they're fighting for their lives, as you see, in completely different breeze, in gustier wind. At the top of the picture on the left-hand side, you see the Danes and another team, I think it's the Belgians, doing very nicely in completely different breeze, and they're going about 10 or 20 degrees higher.
Our cameras caught a couple classic bits of keel color with the ferry leaving on one side of the port, and then an old sailing vessel sailing through the middle of the fleet just a second ago. I mean, that's what Kiel is famous for, is for having so much action on the water. So you're fighting against the other boats, and then you're also dealing with all the other people out sailing in this wonderful sailing area.
And yes, it is a massive festival of sail. We have weekend warriors competing in all kinds of boat, from single-handers all the way up to fully crewed keel boats with maybe 10 or 12 people on board. So it's a full festival of sail. This is the second half of Kiel Week. This is when the Olympic teams come in. We're on day one of the Olympic competition, but Kiel Week has already been going on since last Saturday. So we've had the best part of a week of competition already in some of the other fleets here. And it is massively busy. It's why you see so many waves, and there's so much congestion and confused water for the boats to be able to fight through. But what a stunning performance by Woche and Jensen again, who are showing the way yet again in race 2, having won the previous race just a few minutes ago. And that's Woche and Jensen, pretty much full stretch, just a little bit of knee bend there from the crew, Jakob Jensen. So not quite full power. And you can see how variable the conditions are. One moment they're fully stretched, it looks like really good breeze, and the next moment they're looking for every bit of wind that they can find. So very variable conditions. You've got to keep your head out of the boat, see what's going on around you. So it's not just about boat speed. This is about keeping your head in the game and seeing where the best of these variable conditions is coming from next.
Yeah, it's light again now, Andy. They just crouched in a little bit, and right on the edge of having enough wind or not. We can see Marcus Bauer here not trapping full speed, so he's a little farther in the back. But it's very variable right now. Very challenging sailing conditions for the teams to keep as much power as possible at all times.
So they're looking pretty coordinated for a team that hasn't sailed together for 20 years. And these two now weekend warriors, they were as professional as anybody 20 years ago when they were going for the Sydney 2000 Games, and they went there with hopes of a medal. They didn't quite get there, but they weren't far off the podium. Now coming back just for the fun of it 20 years later against the likes of Jonas Vara, who won the 2008 Games, but now goes round absolute neck and neck with another team, Nyborg and Wright Olsen. Who's going to get the best of the hoist? It's going to be, straight into a jibe set for both teams. So they obviously like what they had on that side of the course. So there's a match race going on between two Danish boats out at the front, and they've got quite a lead on the rest of the pack. The third boat going round is Lefebvre and Pelsmakers from Belgium. And then a couple of German teams going round. It's Pietzke and Van Oppen, followed by, who would you believe it, Bauer and Barth, 5th place for Germany 5. So the weekend warriors, dusting down their wetsuits after 20 years, are showing the pros the way around the track right now. So fantastic sailing by Bauer and Barth right now.
Yes, they'll be thrilled with that. They were looking like they were in trouble trying to get up to the ley line, but they obviously found a spot to do a couple tacks at the end. And Philip, no doubt, will be huffing and puffing after dealing with a variable beat and then a bunch of tacks followed by a jibe hoist to finish here. And we can see most of the fleet jibe setting as the far side of the course must have a little bit more breeze to it. We don't see it affecting the angles too much, but the leaders are bearing off a tiny bit as we speak, probably getting into that new wind. And we can see Lefebvre and Pelsmaker will be, if that far side does come in, they'll be in a bit of trouble here to hold on to their top position.
Well, bearing in mind we haven't even seen Highland Plus or go around the Windward Mark yet. Highland Plus all got absolutely hung out to dry on the left-hand side of the first beat, as were the that other team, Germany 59, who looked so good out off the start. Bergen Baumann now languishing back towards the back of the fleet. So how quickly things turned against the boats on that side of the course. And so it's understandable that the leaders decided to go straight into a jibe set because they wanted to stay away from that dodgy left-hand side of the course as much as possible. Now Warra and Jensen going back into the middle of the course, just getting across Lefebvre and Pelsmakers, but the Belgians have definitely made up ground on the leaders. So the Belgians have now inserted themselves into the battle for the first spot because it was just a straight Danish match race between those two Denmark teams, but now Belgium very much inserting themselves into that contest for leading race 2 of qualification in the blue fleet here in the 49er class.
Very disciplined sailing from Jonas there. Doesn't give any leverage, so just under-jibed the Belgians and make sure that he's in the same wind as them for the rest of this race. He'll obviously feel good pressure as well, so that could have been also the reason why he jibed, is to make sure he gets into this nice pressure. But doesn't want to give any leverage to the competition, knows he can sail in the same wind faster than they can, or at least as fast. And he's in a great position here to take a second victory on the trot, as his compatriots in the blue spinnaker just going behind haven't fared nearly as well, going right to the far corner of the downwind.
So the Belgians are jibed and the Danes jibe to defend as well. So as you said, Ben, they are sailing a very tight race. I was quite surprised how much leverage they let some of their rivals give them in the previous race, but this time round, Warra and Jensen seem to want to stay in exactly the same bit of water and the same bit of wind as the boats in second and third. The Belgians in second now, and the other Danish team of Nyborg and Wright Olsen in third. But now Pietzke and Von Oppen from Germany, they've attacked from the they're just out of picture now, but they might just come into picture. There we are. So the Germans now,
yeah, bit of a puff down the middle of the race course there. So the teams are jiving back and forth to stay in this puff down the middle of the race course, not getting too far to either side, which appears to be outside that puff line. So that's been the successful route downwind here. We can see Bauer fell back quite a few meters as he hasn't got quite in this puff, and we can see a bit overhead how the pressure change or the pressure differences there are in the fleet.
Yeah, so it's a real soft spot coming down into the leeward mark. You can see the gusts further back up the course, but it's quite a sail to get back up into the best breeze. So Warra and Jensen opting to go round the right hand of the two leeward gates, and they've got about a minute of sailing to do before they get into the breezier stuff that's coming further down the track. But they've really stretched away quite a significant lead. They go straight into attack now. So it'll be interesting to see if the Belgians decide to go a little bit further to the right than the Danes. I'm quite surprised the Danes have tacked as early as they did, but if they didn't tack where they did, they were going to have to wait a while because there's a lot of traffic coming down with Jenica. And that's the first of the Germans. That is Pietzke and Von Oppen rounding in Germany 600. And so far, all the leading boats going round the right-hand gate mark. Buchsack and Wijnitsky.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's why Jonas tacked. I wonder if it's a right shift facing upwind. So he's come around the mark, been on a header, decided to tack on the lifted tack and head back up on starboard. This is our first boat coming through and doing a straight drop, so probably dealing with traffic. It's a little harder to make your choices when you're farther back in the fleet. But these are the duo who came second in the last race, Fischer and Graf. First boat to come to the right, and then we see the French also, Roule and Amaras, who got hung out to dry on the left side of the course. Sorry, you can see the header they've just taken there. So I wonder if they'll tack back or if they can even, as their angle has gotten a lot worse for the boats coming on starboard here. And we can see up the course, Warren and Precht Jensen have tacked on that header and are heading back to the right side of the course on a better angle with fully consolidated and now in clear air.
Yes, sailing very, very tight tactics, Vara and Jensen, really keeping close tabs on the Belgians. And with the Danes, the other Danes tucked away, yet another tack from Vara and Jensen. So pretty much tacking on the face of the Belgians this time round. So really tight defensive
Obvious,
game by our race leaders.
in the flat water here, the tacks are not very costly. So obviously, Wauer is feeling confident in his maneuvering, feeling confident that he can tack on the various shifts as they come down and just position himself exactly where he wants to on top of this fleet, giving them no chance to get by, or so he hopes.
And there's a keelboat with white sails going up the middle of the course. And you mentioned this earlier, Ben. This is one of the charms and appeal of sailing at Kieler Woche. It's so busy. You can't always guarantee you've got a clean race course. So that has to factor into your considerations as well. So I don't know if that was another reason why Vara and Jensen tacked where they did, to stay away from the wind shadow of that keelboat. But at the moment, the Belgians are making it very easy for Vara and Jensen to defend their lead. It seems like Belgium likes the left-hand side of the course enough to want to stay there, even though they've got that loose cover on them by the race leaders. And that is the Belgians we're looking at there.
This is now their fourth beat of the regatta of the day. So the teams will be starting to get an idea of what they think the oscillations are in the wind, how far left it goes, how far right it goes. And you can see most of these leaders are all on starboard. They're all clustered together. Many of them, no doubt, would wish to get some leverage, but they obviously feel like they're on the lifted tack right now and don't want to tack. And there they go. So one goes, and the others will go as well. So there's you can see some wind on the far right there. So there are some teams that are trying to split off, and now they all go together as they finally find a bit of a left shift so they can get back on a good angle.
Denmark looking very comfortable going upwind. The Belgians still tucked away to leeward of them, and they are in second place. And it looks like the breeze is going a little bit soft again. Still on the trapeze, but not a lot of breeze right now. But the distance is going further and further in favour of the leaders, the Danish, who have already won the first race of the day.
Yeah, quite light now, which Wauer won't prefer. He'll have had the lead here. He'll have wanted to have it as consistent as possible. As it gets lighter, you never know what might happen. But it does look light across the whole fleet, so it doesn't appear to have lost anything just yet. The boat that's the farthest right of the Dutch, but quite a bit behind. So he'll still be feeling quite confident and still double trapping. So he's not exactly in a terrible hole, but not as windy as we saw on that puff on the downwind they all took through to the gate.
And Ben, how much sailing have these teams managed to get done during 2020? We know they haven't managed to do much formal racing, which is why Kieler Woche is so appealing to so many top teams. But how much have people done over the last few months?
Most of the teams in Northern Europe got to do quite a lot of sailing. So, for example, the Swedes never had to stop, and that community of countries in Northern Europe, Germany, Denmark, Finland, Norway, they all got sailing again quite early, but almost no racing has happened since the shutdowns. There was that practice regatta, sort of coaches regatta, that was maybe a little more formal last week in Aarhus, and that was the first racing that there's been. So they all should have perfect boat handling all week. But the racing skills might be a little rusty, so they'll be happy to test those out. Just as I see about dipping in the wings, so not able to transition as well as they might have preferred. But yeah, most of these teams should have had plenty of water time, be super fit, been able to do lots of cardio and fitness and things like that, stretching. But first real racing, certainly since the Worlds. If you remember, Andy, sorry to keep going. The teams were almost all of them sitting in Palma when the shutdown hit. So Palma was planning on happening. As we see a replay here of just, I think that's Fisher and Graf struggling to deal with a real light header that came in. You can see even in easy conditions as it is, the 49er keeps you working. But yeah, everyone was sitting in Palma ready for the Princess Sophia Trophy Regatta to start with about 3 days to go. the organizers canceled and said everyone has to leave Spain, and the whole boat park evaporated in 24 hours and left for their home countries.
So that was a full 6 months ago, and so that's a big chunk of time for competitors to lose out. We're looking at Germany 5, that was Bauer and Bath. They rounded the top mark in 5th place. They've dropped back to 8th, but still a very respectable score. Crossing ahead of Germany 2, Eric Heil and Tommy Plussel. So 2 Olympians from very different generations, from different eras, but it's the old boys showing the younger current competitors the way around the racetrack right now. But fully stretched at the front, back in good breeze again, is Denmark 7, Vara and Precht Jensen. But they are not the leading Danes. They're not leading the race. It's another Danish team that have moved into the lead. It's Nyborg and Wright Olsen, who have stolen a march on the 2008 Olympic champion. So good tactics, sailing a different way up the track. I think they came from the right-hand side, didn't they, Ben, even though we see them on the left now?
Well, I mean, what a shake-up here. As it got light, things got more risky for our previous leaders, Warren and Precht Jensen. And this team of Nyborg and Wright Olsen, they obviously found the breeze and have taken a massive lead here into the windward mark. So everything was under control. We saw Warren do as much as he could to try and keep right on top of his nearest competitors, but there's still a way around. And actually, look how good the breeze is here as these two Danes get around. Remark actually struggled to bear away a tiny bit there. And if they hook up into that puff for the downwind, they'll be off with the rest of the fleet, in still middling winds. And certainly Warrer, not in great wind yet, and still not at the ley line. There he is now. So Warrer's dropped well down the fleet. We see,
and that's Fisher and Gruff.
That was from the far left, I believe.
That's right. That we saw them sail into that hole when the boat was coming in on top of them, and they looked like they were in a bit of trouble. But maybe that dip that they had was the start of some new breeze shifting in from the left, and they've really capitalized on being on the left-hand side, which was so awful on the first beat. So things are switching between left and right, and there are huge wind holes and then gusts. I mean, in numerical terms, going around that windward mark is not a disaster for Warrer and Jensen, but they will be gutted after leading the race now to drop down to 4th place. Still a very respectable score, but those other Danes have really stretched away. Nyborg and Wright Olsen found something special on that final beat, and now they're going to be the ones that will be hard to beat going down the final run to the finish.
Yeah, multiple 100-meter shift in fortunes for Jonas Hoare and Jakob Precht Jensen. Only 3 spaces on the scoreboard, as you say, and still some work to do. It has to be said, but a big shakeup. But that's what sailing here in Kiel is all about. Look how nice the wind is now. We saw how much they were struggling on that beat at times, and now fully stretched out right at the back of the wings, flat water. Probably on a decent angle to the finish. This will be, if it holds, a relatively easy downwind for these young leaders.
Yes, we're not seeing anyone jibe away yet. The whole of the fleet is following them down on starboard jibe. So this is right now a very straightforward race for them to defend. Look at that line of 49ers. No one breaking out of line because there's just no point. The wind shift is that big that it's a big left-hand shift. And you want to stay in that. It would be suicide to jibe away from that line, even if you don't like where you are in the fleet right now.
Yeah, they're only about 5 degrees off the finish line, so they'll be able to just do a couple jibes at the finish, unless it bends even farther, which it looks like it might have, and get through this finish line without any hassle at all. Big breeze in from behind. You can see them still trapping as hard as they can in this downwind and flat water. Just going to deal with a little bit of our camera boat wake at times, or someone else's boat wake, but they can manage that. And you can see from this overhead shot just the shoreline in the back and how close we are to shore, which explains some of the shiftiness and puffiness on the water.
And how much do you know about this leading team, Nyborg and Wright Olsen, Ben?
Oh, they've been around for a while, so I called them a young team, but they've been racing for at least 4 years, I'd say. Probably would have had ambitions to get the Olympic spot themselves. might not have expected Jonas Wöhr to sail as well as he did in the Down Under Tour of the Two Worlds. But I think they were Gold Fleet in one of the worlds, and maybe ready to challenge for Paris. Clearly have the skills to get to the front of the race course, as we've seen. They've had 2 good races so far, including what should be this victory.
And they've got an absolutely massive lead. And it's interesting to see some of the boats behind have now jibed onto Port Jibe, just as we see the leaders on Port Jibe going past the gate and carrying on down towards the finish. They must be very close to the finish now, and there's no one that's going to be able to take it away from them. Just a few meters away from the finish, final jibe for the Blue Jenica of Nyborg, Wright Olsen, who found the way up that second beat, such a tricky second beat, and displaced the other Danes to win this race, making it a Danish double victory, but from 2 different Danish teams. So a very strong showing by the Danish squad right now. And congratulations to Nyborg and Wright Olsen for winning race 2 of the Blue Fleet qualification in Kiel Week 2020. Now comes Germany. Tim Fischer, Fabian Graf, they found their way up the left-hand side of the beat. They come in second. That's 2 second places for them. That will put them in the overall lead potentially, depending on where Wöhr and Jensen, the other Danish boat, cross this finish line. We see 3 boats coming in on starboard, but it's going to be the Belgians who look like they might get across in third place. Belgium in second for so much of this race, managing to hold on to third. So third place.
And that's the black spinnaker there's Wöhr. So he's through in fourth, followed by good recovery here from the French, who picked up a couple spots to finish in fifth. And who's that last team?
Pete Secker and Von Oppen from Germany. Germany 600.
Yes, we saw them briefly appear in the lead in the first beat, didn't we? And they've still managed to top 10, so that's good for them.
But as for Highland Plussel, we don't even see them in picture yet. They are lying in about 12th place, but crossing the line now is Buksaken Wijbicki from Poland, the first of 2 Polish teams. We're going to see Staniul and Storch in the very drab, unidentifiable mainsail that we were talking about earlier in race 1. And that's the Blue Jenica of Staniul and Storch.
So we had lots and lots of these sale stickers ready to ship to teams in Palma. The shipment didn't make it to Palma, and as everything bailed out, but we've had to recover those and ship them to here in Kiel and to a couple other spots around the world. So I wonder if those 2, I haven't seen an email from them. I wonder if those 2 have forgotten to order their stickers or thought they were getting something they aren't, and that's why they don't have anything on their sale. But good to see them still racing well, and we still can't identify them by their lack of other identification.
Yes, as long as they're the only ones that do that. Meanwhile, Germany 5, nicely identifiable. Germany 5 is Marcus Bauer and Philippe Barth, who come 9th in that race, ahead of Eric Kyle and Tommy Plussel, who was second in the World Championships at the start of the year. So a really impressive performance by Marcus Bauer and Philippe Barth, back together again, reunited after 20 years since the Sydney 2000 Games, where I think they might have actually finished 5th. And I'm wondering if that's why they've got 5 on their sail to commemorate their finishing position in those Olympic Games. And now we've got Lambria and Van Vogt. They've just crossed as well. And Berg and Baumann have just gone across. That's the German boat that was doing so well off the start. And then it just all turned to custard for them. About halfway up the first beat. We talk about in England, Ben, I don't know if it means anything to you, Snakes and Ladders, a board game that you play called Snakes and Ladders. There's lots of snakes and ladders on this race course.
Well, you see how spread out the fleet is in this race compared to the last, and it's really dramatic as the German feed goes to our overall leaders, Fabian Graf and Tim Fischer. But it's the race. You could see how spread out this race was, and that's because of that light section we had in the middle of the second beat that really split everything out and turned Jonas Wöhr's lead into a deficit. So with some of the teams going essentially around everyone else, double trapping the whole time, and others stuck in the middle of the course and now stuck on this downwind. We saw how quickly the leaders finished, and now we see these boats hardly moving on the downwind. Explains why we're so spread out here today.
And yes, very slow finish for the backmarkers in this race, struggling to keep their boats going across the finish line. It's a close battle between these two blue Genicas. And these are the final few boats of Blue Fleet. The Americans are back here, Molleris and McDermid. And it's the Norwegians and actually also the Irish way back in 23rd place. So we saw the Irish, Seaton and Guilford, doing so well in race one, but not so good in that second race.
So yeah, that'll be really tough on Seaton and Guilfoyle there to finish third last in a race like that. I wonder where they got stuck. Very disappointing for them. Although the Danish team behind them, Scott Vielsen and Nielsen, they're quite an experienced team too. So clearly some snakes, I suppose it would be, Andy, that they've taken backwards down the fleet. Not that I suppose people play any real board games anymore. But yeah, challenging racing, and we see the guys who are on it, consistently doing well. Warrer and Price Jensen, along with Fisher and Graf, two great races each from them, along with the Belgian team of Lefebvre and Pelsmaker. So the teams that have got it right have so far been pretty consistent. And Helen Plosel, man, what a way to start your Kiel week. The Germans take a lot of pride in sailing a lot of Kiel weeks and doing well at a lot of Kiel weeks. I'm sure Marcus Bauer will have stood up on a table somewhere at some point and said he's competed in 25 straight Kiel weeks at one point in his life. And here he is still doing well. But, for the Olympic bound Helen Plosel to have an OCS and a 9th to start their regatta, an 11th to start the regatta, that'll be no fun. And it's actually qualifying. So bit of pressure will fall onto their shoulders now as they have to come in the top half of the fleet to make it through to the gold round and hopefully onwards to the medal race. So, it's a short regatta. It's only 4 days. You don't have many bad races like a big championship to try and work back from.
That's very true. And it's looking much better for Fischer and Graf, another German team who have got 2 second places so far in this Blue Fleet qualifying. So looking much better for them. But just remind us of the situation as far as qualification for Tokyo 2021 is concerned in Germany, Ben.
Well, I believe on the basis of the results that they scored down in New Zealand and Australia, that Highland Plosel have got it wrapped up. I think they got so many points that no one can get more points than they have in the third qualifier. So I think they're essentially punched their ticket. And I think that's why we don't see Justus Schmidt and Max Bohm in the fleet, the second rated German team overall in the last quad anyways. Fischer and Graf, I think, were ways back as well. So, I think it's done. I think they're going to the games. And I don't know how, engaged they were with their sailing over this shutdown period. They're both still students. I think Eric Heil is a medical student and, really trying to get his studies in and balance his Olympic sailing as he's on the long program already. And an extra year to the games won't have been on his plan when it all hit. So I don't know how much they've sailed in the meantime, but they've done that all quad long, jumped in and out of the boat and their studies. So I wouldn't read too much into 2 races here on the first regatta back, but they'll still want to sail well in their home country and in any regatta they do. So let's look for what they do in the next race here to see if they can recover.
Well, Ben, we're going to take a short break, and then it won't be too long before we're getting back into the start sequence of the next race, which will be race 3 of the Blue Fleet qualifying. So we will be back to you in just a few minutes. Stay with us and we will see you then. Two races done of the 49er qualification racing. You're back with me, Andy Rice, talking from the UK, and with Ben Ramoka in Canada. So we're doing remote commentary in the COVID era, but hopefully we're still bringing you some useful insight and input. Ben Ramoka is class manager for the 49ers, so he knows these teams inside out. He works with them year in, year out. He's on the phone and email and on the Facebook page with these guys all the time. And we've got just 1 minute to go to the start of race 3 for the Blue Fleet in the 49er at Kieler Woche. We see Tim Fischer and Fabian Graf from Germany holding top spot so far with 2 second places in the 2 races so far. And we've seen 2 different Danish teams win the first 2 heats, but not so good from Eric Heil and Tommy Plussel. So keep an eye out for Germany too, to see if they can redeem themselves after a shockingly bad start to the regatta. There's Germany 2 on the right-hand side of picture.
And just a few seconds to go to the start here, and we can see it's much lighter than it has been. So tricky starting for these teams, and like you said, let's see how the German team of Hell and Plosel come in this race as the teams approach the line.
And just a few seconds to go, and now they cross the line. Will anyone be over? Let's see. It looks like it could be a good start for Belgium off the pin end. Just having to squeeze round, having to lose a bit of speed there, but just about getting away with it. So Belgium just about winning that pin end and holding everybody else out. Now the French go into an early tack. France 8. Will they be able to tack and cross the boats that came off the middle of the start?
Yeah, so I can see on the tracking that they are definitely going for it. It looks like that was a bit of a shift and they've made it through. So yes, Rule and Amaros, dream start for them as they third boat off the line and managed to tack and cross. There was quite a gap between the couple boats that went for it at the pin and obviously found this left shift the first. And now they're in a commanding position with a huge lead for considering we're only 30 or 45 seconds into this race. Also, the Belgian team tacked and crossed there. Oh, no, they haven't. They're still in the foreground. So that was another German team who managed to tap and cross. That was Berg and Baumann. So a couple teams here with the dream start of catching that first shift early.
Yes, and so the Belgians that we see now in our picture, they tried to get across Germany too, but they couldn't quite manage it. They were bounced out to the left-hand side, whereas the French managed to tack and cross everybody on their right. And you just wonder, sometimes it's those small things, the difference between making that first cross or not, that can end up being the difference between finishing first or finishing 20th. So Lefebvre and Pelsmakers, finally, they managed to tack on to Port Tack, and they're coming in at the bottom of our screen now, but weren't able to dictate their own terms earlier on in the race because of Highland Plus or Germany 2, who on this occasion, Ben, for the first time we see Highland Plussel in contention in the front row of the fleet in qualifier 2.
Yeah, first time we've seen them up in the front group, and they held these Belgian team under the far right, and a little bit out of phase, not quite as in phase as what we saw the French doing, but still a good start from the duo of Hell and Plosel. And now you can see not getting across. They've got some interesting choices here as some starboard tackers have also done well, and they're going to have to go behind the Austrian team of Pretner and Flechberger, young Austrian team there. So, we see actually Hell and Plosel here have undertacked the Austrians. So, I don't know if they're in phase or not, these Germans. They've had a tough go the first 2 races. They didn't sail that first race. They were OCS, and now don't seem to be completely in sync with this race. So I wonder where their game's at today, but maybe this left side will come true for them.
Well, we saw the left side come good at the top of the beat of the previous race, but there are no givens, there are no certainties today. What works on one beat could well be the opposite of what works on the next beat. You've really got to be heads out the boat, and you've got to be thinking that every moment that you're being dealt right now is completely different to what you saw on any previous leg of the day. So there are very few patterns that you can draw any kind of comfort from. Highland Plussel now quite exposed.
big group in the middle of the course here. So we've often seen a bunch of boats going to the far right and a few coming to the far left, but we see a lot more boats in the middle in here. Clearly some. Oh, and you see a puff there on the far side of the course. So on the at the top end of the screen, just before we flip to this side, it looked windy on the far side. So I wonder if it's actually the teams who have gone farther right that are going to come true here. And we do see in the foreground now, Warrer and Jensen in focus, and they are just trying to find them on the tracking. So they are, they are on the far side, far left of the course. They don't appear to be in the lead according to the tracking, but they do seem to be in great wind as we move back and focus on the boats on the far left. And now we're back on. These are the leaders on the water, Berg and Baumann. We saw them tack early and link together a few shifts, and there's Warrer and Pruck Jensen coming through to the underneath them. So lots of different wind patterns to here. The Dutch have been hitting the far right hard all day, and they're going to be a contention here too, Lambro and Van Voigt.
That's a good observation, Ben. The Dutch really have liked the right-hand side, and it's not as been as straightforward as just going right all day in terms of doing well. So it seems strange to me that they're so wedded to the right-hand side. But let's see if they can make it work on this occasion. Germany 59, they made a bit of a mess of the previous race. They had such a good start in the previous race, and then they fell into a wind hole on race 2. Now in race 3, in the early stages of race 3, Germany 59 looking very good. Germany 2, well, they're in contention as well for the first time. Eric Kyle and Tommy Plussel, second in this year's World Championships in Auckland at the start of the year. We don't know how much sailing they've managed to do this season, but they need to keep the training going because they're going to be representing Germany for the second time at the Olympic Games at Tokyo 2021 next year, seeing if they can improve on that bronze medal they won at Rio 2016. But if we keep an eye on the
tracking of Berg there, they just got a header and they were on the far left of the course and tacked back onto port, so they'll be lifted as they head back. So they could be linking together a very nice beat here. We're focused on screen on, of course, Heil and Plosel a little farther back in the pack. They're in the middle of the course, but we can see Berg and Baumann linked together a couple nice shifts as they took their tack, but they're now quite exposed to the left side of the course. They chose to come to this far left or this close side of the course. And they'll now be hoping that they've got enough pressure to come across. You can see the crew there bending in, so not full trapping. We don't know if the teams on the far side are full trapping from this angle, but could have been a little bit aggressive from this team to get leverage at the top of the course. But maybe they did get some shifts. Okay, so now we see Pretner and Flachberger from Austria taking the virtual lead, and Heil and Plosel sailing on their hip. And then the Dutch, Lambro, Van Voigt, coming in from the far side. So I think it was a bit windier on this side of the course, and these teams have taken advantage of that.
And it looks soft for the leaders, the Austrians. Yeah, this is about as soft as we've seen all day. So not much breeze. Oh, just a little puff there for Vora and Jensen, but it's short-lived. And then you see the race winners from the previous race on the left-hand side, the other Danes, 277, fully stretched and with good breeze out on that side of the course. So these patches are so localized. Now the Austrians are stretching out a little bit more nicely, but it's very, very tense and hard work on the knees as well.
Yeah, so we can see Highland Plosel tacked on that shift, and they've come underneath. The leaders, the Austrians, they seem to be just out of the puff as Warrer manages to creep above them. So those Austrians, I think, are going to get passed by the Dutch, who are coming in from the top right of the course. They're not having to pitch to get to this mark. So they're putting their flow on, and we'll see if Warrer can get up to that line. But he's actually sailing through the dirt of the Dutch team there. Very impressive skill set there to pull that off. As we see the Austrians going to try and do two tacks, they're probably going to get bounced into third here as they won't be able to get inside Warrer. So Warrer showing his guile there, getting into second. And here's the Dutch in for the lead, that right side coming true for them. And they go for a straight set here. So they maybe it's the shift. I don't know. Maybe they obviously see some pressure or something. So they haven't. I'm a little surprised they haven't gone back to the side they've been at all day. But here we are, Berg and Baumann round in third, I guess that would be, followed by the Austrians, and then Hale and Plosel, who have sailed up the middle of this course and had a nice beat for the first time of the day. There we see
Yes,
Eric
that's
Kyle
right.
and Thomas Plosel.
Yes, good sailing for a change from Heil and Plussel. Just looking over their shoulders, seeing what the breeze is, seeing what their competition is doing. Some boats going for some early jibe sets. That's another Dutch boat, I think. Bramevair and Offerman going into an early jibe set, and the boat behind them also doing that. That's Nyborg and Wright Olsen, who won the previous race. Now, Highland Plussel in the middle of our picture, along with the other German team, Berg and Baumann, also jibing to defend. So they see the best breezes coming from the top of picture right now, which is already where the race leaders have gone. So the right-hand side seems to be the favourite.
It's a guessing game right now with the breeze. There's no obvious spot to get the best wind. So the teams are really having to gamble here to decide which way the wind's going to come in from. And we can see, Highland Postal took a little bit of a straight and then decided, oh no, too much of the fleet's going the other way. It doesn't look like anyone's completely hooked up into the wind yet, but it could come from either side. So just playing their odds and sticking with the fleet. And we see the Dutch just the legging out there. So they've got some wind as we get farther down the racecourse.
It looks like nice wind to me, Ben. It looks to me like as they come out of that jibe, a little bit soft, but they were looking like they've got pretty good air there, the leaders from the Netherlands.
Yeah, it did look good, didn't it? They went for the jibe. Maybe they're on ley line already, so could be a bit of a skewed course, or just maybe it's windy enough they have to jibe early. But Highland Plosel have escaped that. They did the straight set. So I think it's been pretty even on the way down. Yeah, actually, so the Dutch were not on ley line. They jibed maybe to stay in pressure. Bit surprising. We see Jonas Warrer and Jakob Jensen. So the Dutch are going back here. So yeah, there's not a lot of agreement on where the best wind is in this course. Teams are really working hard to seek out the best lanes and find better wind.
I think, Ben, it's as simple as the best wind is so localized. Nothing lasts very long. There are no clear patterns here. And sometimes you've got to keep short jibing your way down the middle of the course to stay in a narrow seam of breeze. And maybe that's what the Dutch are doing. And so you've almost got to sail the breeze rather than your competition, especially when you're going downwind. So Warrer and Jensen, a good position for them. They've led the two previous races. They won one of them. They missed out a little bit in race 2 where they dropped back to 4th place, but still putting together a very good series and right now in contention for the lead of this race. So right now, Warrer and Jensen are very much the standout performers of the day, because we don't see, for example, Fischer and Graf fighting in the top few. They came second in the first 2 races, but Fischer and Graf lying just outside the top 10 right now.
Yeah, it's we're focusing here in this battle with Eric Heil as the Dutch sail through to the lead. But yeah, you can see in the background of this picture how the localized puffs, and it looked to me like Heil and Plosel were out of that puff, and now they've obviously found it again. We'll see what the Dutch do on this rounding, if they're going to jibe through. Yeah, they are going to jibe through and come back to that puff they've been sailing in. So big lead here for the Dutch. They've found some magic on the right side of the course and then navigated this downwind very cleanly, staying in the pressure. They'll have to clear their wind here and then find the right shift. Looks to me like they're very headed right here, so I wonder if they'll take attack early or not. Yeah, as they go for attack right now. Jonas Warrer and Jakob Jensen look like a little indecisive on which gate to go to, and I think that wind shift from the right has been very strong. So they've changed their minds at the last minute on which gate to go to. And now you can see with the pressure on, the third place boat was overstood. So they're having to douse early and do a bit of an ugly rounding. So big pressure in from behind, I'd say right now, that's going to shake things up yet again. And it's going to be a bit of a messy leeward gate, if I had to guess, for most of the pack as they get in.
Very good. That's a good prediction. Let's see if it comes true. doing that jibe drop, and now we've seen another jibe drop executed beautifully by Eric Hull and Tommy Plussel. Now it's the other German boat about to go around Germany 59. Not quite such a neat rounding by them. And now, as you predicted, Ben, it's starting to get congested, and this is all going to play into the leader's hands. Oh, is that going to be a tip in by the Austrians? Oh dear. So this is how difficult it becomes when you go around in traffic. You just don't have time to execute your maneuvers the way that you'd like to.
Yeah, the winds come in and pushed everyone downwind at the same time, and we've had all these boats arrive all together, having to navigate what looks to be a bit of a skewed gate as well, with the wind coming in a bit off cue, and a bit of a disaster for those young Austrians. Poor guys, they were leading with 100 meters to go to the windward mark, and now find themselves having a disaster of a race. But this puffy and offshore condition here in Kiel is kind of famous for that. The good boat handling matters in the critical moments like that. You can go from a great race to a disaster. Dutch have done well. They've managed to tack on that new pressure and escape. We just go to a replay here. You're going to see the Austrians. Look, everything seems fine, but they're just too loaded up as the boom comes across.
Too much steering. The Jenica was almost at the top of the mast still, and so the drop was too late, and then the crew had to leave the Jenica and join his helm up on the side of the boat because the helm kept on steering up. The helm steered where he wanted to steer the boat, but when you've still got the Jenica fully hoisted in a 49er, you just can't afford to do that. There's too much windage. There's too much pressure. You can't turn the boat up into the breeze with the Jenica still hoisted. So the whole thing was too panicked, and they didn't give themselves enough time to get that Jenica down.
Yeah. So a couple of moments there they'll be regretting, but at least we got to watch it on replay, and so will they and their mates. So that'll be talked about in the boat park tonight, I'm sure. Out with our leaders here, Lambro and Van Voigt. And, the drag and their spin sheet there, got to suck that into the boat, fellas. But nice breeze here. You saw how light it was in the first beat. Now they've got full trap and probably even a bit of vang on there to get clear. And look at Eric Hull and Tommy Plussel. So they're going for it on this second beat. The big split from the rest of them. And considering they were in third place and how most of the pack's going the other way, quite a lot of risk for them to take on. But they would have sailed more days here in Kiel than almost anyone. So maybe they know something we don't. And certainly the Dutch came from that right side for the last win, or to take the first beat. So bit of risk on for Highland Plussel that we were on board there with Fisher and Graf. They are our overall leaders coming into this race and having another good race in sixth. I think they moved up quite a bit. I think they're in past 10th at the windward mark, but did well on the breezy downwind and are ahead of this pack of boats. They've got one boat to chase down in Rule and Amaros, and then they want to stay ahead of the next chasing pack. So just lots of action here for Fisher and Graf, and if they can move through and stay in the top six or even move up a little bit, they're fifth now on the virtual leaderboard. Another great day for them, or another great race to make for a great day, along with Warrer and Preck Jensen, who could also take the lead for the day if they hold on to the second place or manage to beat the Dutch somehow, who have the big lead.
Yes, for me, Denmark 7 is the standout team of the day from what we've seen so far, and they're gonna struggle in this breeze to get past the Dutch. These are good breezes right now to defend a lead in, but just as quickly as that breeze picked up in Kiel, maybe we could see that breeze drop away very quickly as well. And that little speck just behind the Dutch mainsail, I'm just wondering if that is Eric Harland, Tommy. No, it's not. That's another boat from another part of Kiel Week, maybe. But I'm just wondering how far over Eric Harland, Tommy Plussel are.
I think you were right there. I think that was Highland Plussel, but I guess we're on a different shot now, so we'll find out soon. Yeah, there they are. So, the Dutch are still ahead, but Highland Plussel have managed to come back to the leaders safely. It is lighter. It's certainly lighter now than at the bottom of the beat. As you can see, the Dutch not quite fully leveraged, but So we could have a bit more action here to go as we see the wind get lighter. We've seen big puffs come in from the far left. In the second beat, we don't see anyone out there right now. So the Dutch do seem safe, but it could all get congested again if it turns light at the top of this beat.
And Fisher and Graf putting themselves potentially back into the top 5. They were outside the top 10 coming down that run. So a good game. Good gain by the Germans, Fischer and Graf, Germany 13.
They just passed the French team of Roule and Amaros on this beat. So they're up to 4th place in this race already, down from 10th, as you said. So very good second beat here. There's still I think there's still quite a bit going to happen at the top of this beat as it's turned lighter. We see the Dutch now have done a number of tacks to try and find a good angle. The wind's not off like it was in parts of the second race, but for the chasing pack, I think there's going to be quite a bit happening still.
And number 49 on their sail, Ben, did they have to pay extra to get the 49 on their sail?
No, they picked that up from a retiring team. That was the Portuguese had that sail number for years, but retired from it. So they managed to get the lucky 49. I think I sailed with 49 for a while as well back in my day. So that's a good one to have. And they would have preferred to be able to keep a top 10 number, but didn't have such a great world in Australia. But good number for them. Certainly fits the class. And since they'll be in the class for a while, I'm sure they'll do it proud as they come in to retain the lead here in the second beat. Big decision for them, though. They've got they do have a bit of pressure here, so maybe not quite the decision they would have had if it stayed light. And they're going to go for the jibe. They've liked that far side all day, so it's not that surprising. But I wonder if we'll see Jonas Warrer straight set here and just keep the pressure on the leaders.
Not the way I've seen the Dutch sail away from that mark. It looks like the jibe set is the way to go. I'd be surprised if they do anything different. So
yeah, you saw Jonas
the way
as Jonas was bearing off for that hoist, he took one last look behind, and I think he agreed with you. Yeah, we're gonna go the way of this puff. You can see how overstood they are on starboard. So clearly, there's a shift at the top here that's giving them good angle. You can see that's Highland Plosel who have dropped back. So that's Fisher and Graf who have taken the right side and sailed around Highland Plosel. Highland Plosel are down to 5th. Fisher and Graf have come up from 10th to 3rd. So a dynamite race for them, enough actually as the leaderboard holds to win the day if they can hold it. And as it got lighter there were more opportunities, and it ends up coming in from the right side of the course. Fisher and Graf have really nailed this beat.
Absolutely. I mean, a sensational recovery for them. They were down in 12th on the previous run, and now they find themselves up to 3rd. I mean, you shouldn't be able to come through like that, but if there's any day that would enable you to do that, it's the snakes and ladders that I've been boring you about, Ben. It's a snakes and ladders kind of day, and Fisher and Graf are finding a lot more ladders and managing to avoid those slippery snakes.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure no one plays that game anymore.
No, I know. I'm a bit older than you, Ben, and you're pretty old. But it looks to me like the Danes have lucked in a little bit here. Have they got a moment to be able to attack for the lead? Because the Dutch look a little bit stranded on that side.
Well, if the Dutch sail out of the puff and the Danish still have it when they have to jibe, there's a chance that the lead can be in contention here. Looking at it right now, the wind does look pretty solid, in which case I'd expect the Dutch to hold. But yeah, there's a bit of a risk here for the Dutch to have to counter, but they do look very solid right now. Doesn't look like they're about to sail out of the wind, and certainly if they jibe, they'd cross right now as long as their wind holds. And as we see that the Danish line isn't quite as low as it was on the Dutch just a few moments ago. So looks pretty good for the Dutch here. And the farther you get away from shore, the less unpredictable it is. Or the more predictable it is. So you can see the lanes there, though. There's been some changes. They're still in their first jibe, and look how close they are to the ley line of the finish. So that wind has continued to turn to the right, facing upwind, and giving them headers all the way down the course, allowing them to sail straight. And the Howland Plosel don't have too many opportunities to catch up from that last loss. So back down to fifth for them. Not a disaster of a race certainly, but they would have preferred to have got a few less points here and made up for their OCS and their poor finish in the second race.
Yeah, well, they probably wish they could have got 3 top tens based on how it's actually gone for them. It's not been a stellar day for Highland Plussel at all. Lots of other German teams doing well today, but in particular Fischer and Graf up from somewhere in the early teens, 12th or 13th, up to third in this race. Meanwhile, Lambria and Van Vugt, who we look at now with the Blue Genica, are still looking comfortable ahead of the Danes, chasing in second place and getting down close to the finish. This might even be the final jibe for the Dutch before they cross the finish line.
Yeah, very good boat handling from them. You can see, they're marginally trapping or medium trapping, a very comfortable position to be in, unless your counterparts are hooked up in a breeze. They're high right now on angle, so they still have a bit of work to do. And you can see Jonas War just going a little bit outside them, but quite a comfortable spot for them here. Bit of chop. You can see the 49er FX fleet setting up to do their racing, it looks like, next. And here come the Dutch through for the pretty comfortable win. Another good jibe, and off they go.
They make that jibe look so easy. Just beautiful footwork through the boat and a nice straightforward victory for the Dutch. So it will be 2 Danish teams and now a Dutch team that take the 3 race wins of the day. This was the winner of the first race of the day, Jonas Vara and Jakob Jensen getting a second place. And they will finish very close to the top of the leaderboard. But I think, Ben, you perhaps have Fischer and Graf down as winners of the day with 2 seconds, and now in this race, a third place. So 2-2-3 gives Fischer and Graf 7 points from the day. Very, very respectable set of scores for them. And then a bit of a gap back to the next German boat, Germany 600 of Pietzke and von Oppen. And Germany 600, what do you know about them, Ben? I haven't heard much of them before.
No, I haven't heard much of them before. I mean, I've seen them on the results before, but there is a huge German development pack of boats. I think there's 10 each of 49er and 49er FX that have been training hard for the whole quad, or at least the year 2 of the quad. And, this is a great result for them. I do think that both Highland Plussel and Schmidt-Bohm are probably retiring. So, Fischer Graf are looking to take the mantle as the top German team, but they'll have plenty of competition from a big pack of German boats who are all trying really hard to make it to the top levels of 49er sailing. And here we see Hail Plussel, their best finish of the day, a 5th, still a respectable race, but back from earlier positions in the race. So weren't able to make it through like we saw Fischer and Graf do.
No, a little bit exposed on the second beat when they went so far right. Now the French charging in, Ruel and Amoros. Pretty good day for the French and a pretty good day for the Orange Genica of the Belgians, Lefebvre and Pelsmakers, just getting ahead of Italy 88, Visconti and Christie.
Yeah, I think the Belgian team there will have had the 3rd best day of the fleet, actually. So they'll be very happy with a day like that. 3 solid races and good finishes and top 10s. So good for them to stay in the top group and set themselves up for a strong regatta here. They're going to want some confidence trying to win that last Olympic berth for Europe.
And we got 2 Danish teams coming in here. Nyborg and Wright Olsen, they won the second race of the day, but it looks like they might just be pipped by Salskov, Iversen and Nielsen. So really tight race here between 2 Danish teams and also the Polish, Buksak and Wijbicki. Now, it's surprising we haven't had more to say about the Poles today, Ben. We expect to see better things from them, but they haven't had a stellar day by their standards.
No, they haven't, and I'm not sure. The Poles have not selected who they're sending to the games, and they're taking every regatta piece of data and then making a decision. So this regatta actually matters for them. Maybe we don't know how much, but they'll be disappointed in the day. They're the type of team who could have excelled today and just haven't. Likewise, Seaton and Guilfoyle, who also have not done anything special today for the team from Ireland.
And Bergen-Baumann, we saw the German team. They are just about to cross the line, but behind another German team, Reuler and Heinrich. Bergen-Baumann up there vying for the lead in the early stages of this race. So we saw Fischer and Graf come through from the middle of the pack and end up getting third in that race. But we saw the less experienced Bergen-Baumann drop their way back through the pack. And so just showing that difference in quality between some of the teams. And then our friends Marcus Bauer and Philippe Barth, ninth in the previous race, the old boys, the veterans of the Sydney 2000 games, still with a few boats behind them, but more at the end of the fleet that you might expect the weekend warriors to be. But even so, a ninth place in the middle race today goes to show that the old boys still have some quality in them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they feel tomorrow morning. But good sailing today, and they'll be happy to have a nice day sailing. Obviously, flat water conditions and a bit tactical, a bit shifty will be right up their alley. And goes, there isn't much of a Masters fleet in 49er, but maybe there should be.
Yes, well, I know that's something that you're keen to do, and if there ever is, then maybe you and I will be competing against each other again, Ben.
Yeah, we should try and organize that sometime for us old boys.
Yeah. Now, who's your standout performer of the day and why?
I'm going to go with Fischer and Graf. Warren Jensen obviously had great scores, but they did it from the front, which is a lot easier way to sail. I'm very impressed that Fischer and Graf managed to sail through in that third race of the day. They were in the middle of the pack. On that around the windward mark, and then capitalized on the puff that came through, dragged everyone downwind, and then further capitalized and went up from 6th, 7th place all the way up to third on that second beat. That's tough. That's the tough way to do it, and to score 3 top threes in a day, and especially one tough one. That's very good sailing. Very impressive.
Really, really difficult to keep your head together on a day like today. It was Kiel, the fjord, throwing the absolute most difficult conditions at people. Very shifty, very gusty, very patchy, and keeping your head out the boat must have been a key skill today, whilst managing to keep the boat speed on. So anyway, that was 3 races down, and it was those 2 teams, Fischer and Graf, Germany 13 and Denmark 7, of Jonas Vora and Jakob Jensen, who were the 2 standouts of the blue side of qualification. Meanwhile, just across the water was the yellow group. So we've got more than 60 teams competing here. This is the first high-level competition that we've seen in Olympic class racing for the best part of 6 months. That's why we've got so many world-class teams here, keen to get that regatta experience back in again. We're going to be back to you tomorrow with perhaps an even more world-class showing from the NACRA 17 fleet, Ben. We've got the reigning world champions. We've got the reigning Olympic champions. We've got so much class and quality to look at in the NACRA 17 tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be a very exciting day of racing tomorrow. We're coming 2 hours earlier tomorrow than we did today, so an 11 o'clock local start time in Germany. And we'll send out an email, of course, to all our subscribers at 49er.org/subscribe. So if you're not getting our emails, make sure you sign up. And we're going to be with you for 3 more days, 4 including today. And the NACRA 17 fleet tomorrow should be outstanding. As you champion Santiago Lang and Cecilia Ceroli are up from Argentina, along with many of the top global teams. A few obviously had to stay home, but should be great racing. And I'm sure Kiel will deliver fantastic conditions for us, along with great coverage.
Well, Ben Ramoka, thanks very much. Great to have you working with me in these fleets that you know so well, the 49er today and the NACRA tomorrow. So I will be tapping your memory banks for everything you know about the NACRA teams tomorrow. We're going to be talking you through 3 of their qualification races. For the time being, from me, Andy Rice, and from Ben Ramoka out in Canada, that's it for today, and we look forward to seeing you back with us again at 11 a.m. local time in Kiel, Germany. We will see you then.